Good morning, sixth grade. This is your first online class. This is a little weird recording myself. I don't like it. I'm pretty sure you guys are laughing right now, but hey, we still gotta get work done, all right? So last time we talked about Greek mythology and how Greek mythology was used to tell stories about how natural events happened. You guys all created your Greek gods, and you guys did a really good job on that. So today we're going to move on and we're going to talk about how Greek literature was really important and how they used literature to go on and kind of how it's still used to us today. Right now, a lot of the stuff that we learn about the Greeks is through through their literature, through their epics, through the poems, everything that they wrote and told. Actually, some of the music, we have lyrics to songs, and that all came from Greece. Some of these long poems that we have, a lot of the fables that you guys learned, the fables of like The Boy Cried Wolf, Tortoise and Hare, these are all Greek works. So today we're going to cover these in class, and then you'll have questions to answer. And if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments or on your homework. Just leave me a note, and then I can go ahead and cover it for tomorrow's video. Okay? So this is how it's going to be. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to ask me. Okay? See ya. Because the Greeks loved myths and stories, it is no surprise that they created great works of literature. Early Greek writers produced long epic poems, romantic poetry, and some of the world's most famous stories. Among the earliest Greek writings are two great epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, both written by poet Homer. Like most epics, both poems describe the deeds of great heroes. The heroes in Homer's poems fought in the Trojan War. In this war, the Mycenaean Greeks fought against the Trojans and for the city of Troy. The Iliad tells the stories of the last years of the Trojan Wars. It focuses on the deeds of the Greeks, especially Achilles, the greatest of all Greek warriors. It describes in great detail the battles between the Greeks and their enemies, the Trojans. The Odyssey describes the challenges that Greek hero Odysseus faced on his way home from the war. For 10 years after the war ends, Odysseus tries to get home, but many obstacles stand in his way. He has to fight his way past these terrible monsters, powerful magicians, and even angry gods. Both the Iliad and the Odyssey are great tales of adventure, but to the Greeks, Homer's poems were much more than just entertainment. They were essential to the ancient Greeks' education. People memorized long passages of the poems as part of their lessons. They admired Homer's poems and heroes described to them in the symbols of Greece's history. Homer's poems both influenced later writers. They made copies of their writing styles, borrowed some of the stories of the ideas that they had, and Homer's poems are considered some of the greatest literacy works ever. What's really cool about these stories is that this was part of the history books. These Greek stories became history. And this is how a lot of the history that we know about the Greeks is available through these stories told by Homer. Other poets wrote poems that were often set to music. During a performance, the poet played a string instrument called a lyre, which you can see in the picture right here. And while they're reading the poet, the musician would play. So these were they were called lyrical poets because they were singing words to the poets as if they were songs to music. So most poets in Greeks were men, but most famous lyric poet was a woman named Sappho. And Sappho was the lady that kind of brought music into the Greek culture. Some of her poems were very beautiful, very emotional, just like the music that you hear today. And because of this, this is kind of like how we started to create music and called lyrics based off this Greek poetry and this lyric poetry. Other Greek stories were told to teach people important lessons. Some of these people were called Aesop, and for example, he was famous for his fables. So fables were short stories that taught readers lessons about life or give advice on how to live. Many of you guys are very familiar with a lot of these fables, such as The Tortoise and the Hare and The Boy Who Cried Wolf. So some of Aesop's fables or animals were talking as the main characters, and these animals acted like humans. For example, I don't know if you guys are familiar with ants and the grasshopper, but this is the story. So there were ants spending a fine winter's day drying grain collected in the summertime, and then a grasshopper who was dying with hunger passed by and begged for a little food. The ants asked him, "Why did you not treasure up some of the food during the summer?" And the grasshopper replied, "I had not enough free time. As the days passed by, I was singing." Then they said, if you're foolish enough to sing all summer, you must dance and be hungry for all of winter. So in this lesson, it was kind of rude for the ants to treat the grasshoppers like that, which is kind of crazy because it is the complete opposite in Bug's life. In Bug's life, the ants are the ones picking the foods for the grasshopper and so on and so forth. So this lesson is teaching us that we shouldn't waste time instead of working. So, and by the time, if we waste our time, we can't complain if we wasted it and we don't have the stuff that we have. So kind of like with your schoolwork, you want to make sure that you guys are doing your schoolwork and not wasting time on YouTube or just waking up late, especially during these times. The other stories that you guys have heard of is the tortoise and the hare. And the tortoise and the hare teaches us that it's better to work slowly and carefully than to hurry through things and make a lot of mistakes. So even right now, while you guys are at home, take your time while you guys are doing your work. If you have questions, feel free to ask us questions. Your teachers are here to help you, especially this is all new for you guys. So just work slowly and we can work together. Then the last one is the one you guys are all familiar with, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. And this warns us not to play pranks on others because maybe when we need them, we need our friends. And if we keep playing pranks with them, they won't take us seriously. Just remember that the story we talked about in China when that one emperor was kept lighting those fireworks to get people to come and save him. And when they actually needed his help, no one was there to help him. So these fables, remember them, these are short stories that are used, and pretty much these short stories are used to give us advice about life and to teach us little stories, or teach us lessons, okay? So for homework, I want you guys to answer these 2 questions. Why did the Greeks tell fables? What were important about these fables? You have to remember what fables were used for, but why would they want to tell these fables? Number 2, what are Homer's most famous works? Don't just list them. Explain to me why are they important? Like how are these epics that Homer wrote, how are they still into effect to us this day? Think about what we use them as today. And number 3, how are fables different from myths? You have to remember what a myth is. Remember, a myth is just a story that tells about heroes and gods. And then what was a fable used for? So how are they different? So make sure you compare and contrast them. And yes, you do have to answer in complete sentences. Okay?